will become an entrepreneurial university with world-class reputation.
ITS has many achievements. Both national and international achievements prove that ITS keeps growing and gives the best contribution to the nation of Indonesia. ITS is a place for new hopes to grow. An ideal environment for the new generation to flourish in 3 strategic locations within the industrial city of Surabaya. As a smart eco-campus, ITS maintains harmony between technological advances and the sustainability of the surrounding ecosystem. ITS has 7 faculties with prospective scientific fields, including Scientics, INSIS, Vocation, Creatis, Martech, Electics, Civplan. ITS is a space for the new generation who are hungry for knowledge because it provides a wide range of references in both physical and digital form. ITS makes it easier for the new generation to access information by providing flexible classes. ITS keeps moving forward in facing future challenges by providing the best facilities for the new generation's activities. The facilities support both spiritual and physical needs. ITS also provides research facilities in the ITS Science Technopark, including ICT and robotics, automotive, maritime, and creative industries. Therefore, the excellent generations from ITS will emerge and make history. ITS is a space for the new generation to express themselves. ITS is a place where the new generation learns new things and finds their purpose. ITS has become a place where the new generations that carry the future will be born.
ITS is a campus of science and technology, which focuses on the research and innovation, presenting technology for prosperity.
With a spirit of heroism, ITS brings the future before us. ITS, the University of Heroes.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we start commence the program, and here are the following webinar protocol. For each participant ID, please use your real name following with your origin of institution. All of participants are expected to mute the audio and only unmute the video during the event. We cordially invite you to take your own firm and comfort seat in your own room, and please avoid the backlight. Make sure that you have a good and stable internet connection. If you have an earphone or headset, we recommend you to use it so that your voice can clearly and loudly to be heard. During the Q&A discussion session, all participants, please use the chat box to deliver the questions. Thank you for your cooperation and consideration. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we start commence the program, and here are the following webinar protocol. For each participant ID, please use your real name following with your origin of institution. All of participants are expected to mute the audio and only unmute the video during the event. We cordially invite you to take your own firm and comfort seat in your own room, and please avoid the backlight. Make sure that you have a good and stable internet connection. If you have an earphone or headset, we recommend you to use it so that your voice can clearly and loudly to be heard. During the Q&A discussion session, all participants, please use the chat box to deliver the questions. Thank you for your cooperation and consideration. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we start commence the program, and here are the following webinar protocol. For each participant ID, please use your real name following with your origin of institution. All of participants are expected to mute the audio and only unmute the video during the event. We cordially invite you to take your own firm and comfort seat in your own room, and please avoid the backlight. Make sure that you have a good and stable internet connection. If you have an earphone or headset, we recommend you to use it so that your voice can clearly and loudly to be heard. During the Q&A discussion session, all participants, please use the chat box to deliver the questions. Thank you for your cooperation and consideration. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we start commence the program, and here are the following webinar protocol. For each participant ID, please use your real name following with your origin of institution. All of participants are expected to mute the audio and only unmute the video during the event. We cordially invite you to take your own firm and comfort seat in your own room, and please avoid the backlight. Make sure that you have a good and stable internet connection. If you have an earphone or headset, we recommend you to use it so that your voice can clearly and loudly to be heard. During the Q&A discussion session, all participants, please use the chat box to deliver the questions. Thank you for your cooperation and consideration. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we start commence the program, and here are the following webinar protocol. For each participant ID, please use your real name following with your origin of institution. All of participants are expected to mute the audio and only unmute the video during the event. We cordially invite you to take your own firm and comfort seat in your own room, and please avoid the backlight. Make sure that you have a good and stable internet connection. If you have an earphone or headset, we recommend you to use it so that your voice can clearly and loudly to be heard. During the Q&A discussion session, all participants, please use the chat box to deliver the questions. Thank you for your cooperation and consideration.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining our Researcher and Research Student Enrichment Program today. Before we start our agenda, let me reinform the webinar protocol to join this event. First, please adjust your name or ID using the given format on this slide. Second, during the event, please turn off your audio and only turn on the audio when the moderator gives you the chance. Third, please turn on your camera. And fourth, ensure your network has a stable connection. Fifth, adjust the seat position comfortably and prevent the backlight effect. I will also read out the important information for today. First, please fill in the attendance form on the link bit.ly/attendance_R2SEP 2021, and the link will be closed in 15 minutes. Second, fill in the feedback form that will be shared 15 minutes before the session ends and will be closed after 1 hour. Third, the attendance and feedback is compulsory for these purposes. First, mandatory attendance for ITS master's and doctoral degree, new intake, and then second, it's for certificate of participation, and it's eligible for international participants who have 60% attendance or minimal 5 meetings. And then it's for STEM for it, and it's eligible for ITS undergraduate students. Welcome to Researcher and Research Student Enrichment session on today, Thursday, the 6th of May, 2021. I am Noor from ITS Global Engagement, and today I will be your master of ceremony for this session. Please do not forget to fill your attendance at the link bit.ly/attendance_R2SEP 2021 that will be sent by our committee via the Zoom chat room, and the link will be closed in 15 minutes from now. Participants who wish to ask questions during the question and answer session, please send your question at the link bit.ly/ADSSQNA_R2SEP 2021 that will also be sent by our committee via the Zoom chat room later. Alternatively, you may raise your hand during the Q&A session to ask your question directly. Before we start our agenda, allow me to deliver our schedule today as follows. For the first agenda will be the opening and then continued by the second agenda, the introduction to the moderator and speaker. After that will be the main agenda or the lecture session, followed by the Q&A session and will be continued by the certificate wording. Finally, the last agenda will be the closing of R2SCP. Before we move on to the next agenda, please allow me to elaborate about today's lecture. Today's lecture, theme in Architecture, Design, Urban Planning, and Social Sciences stream of R2SEP is about common research methodology in your field, which will be delivered by our speaker, Associate Professor Noorsidi Aizuddin Noor from University Technology Malaysia, and Dr. Oktavianti Dwi Wahyurini from ITS will be the one conducting today's session as our moderator. Let me introduce our moderator for today. Our moderator today, Dr. Oktavianti Dwi Wahyurini, is a lecturer at Visual Communication Design Department at ITS, and she is also the Senior Manager on Promotion and Mobility at ITS Global Engagement Office. As for educational background, Dr. Oyin finished her bachelor degree in Visual Communication Design at ITS, her master degree in Applied Design and Art at Curtin University, Australia, and finished her PhD in Rhetorics, Communication, and Information Design at Clemson University in US. Her research interests include rhetorics on human-computer interaction, design management, vernacular design, and city branding, and she has done several research projects. Now that you are informed about our moderator, without further ado, let's proceed to the main agenda. To Dr. Oyen as our moderator, the time is yours.
Hello, thank you, Noor, for very kind introductions. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening and good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here as a moderator in very wonderful sessions of researcher and research student enrichment program. The MC, Noor, already introduced me, so now I would like to introduce our speakers today. Our speakers today is Associate Professor Noorsidi Aizuddin Noor from University Technology Malaysia. He finished his bachelor degree in estate management in University of Malaya, Masters in Science Real Estate in University Technology Malaysia, and he obtained his doctoral degree in Built Environment, Property and Planning in Queensland University of Technology. His academic and professional experience, he was the So he's a senior lecturer and he started his career since 2014 at the Department of Real Estate, Faculty of Geo-Information and Real Estate at University of Technology Malaysia. And currently he's a Chief Executive Officer, Magic. I think you should introduce to us what's the department is it? And at the University Technology Malaysia subsidiary company JVA with my Iskandar from last year until now. And his research interests and latest project, including formative the building material on housing through life cycle costing compassion, a framework for UTM innovation and commercialization process, and also artificial neural network hedonic model for enhanced local house price index forecasting accuracy. Without further ado, the floor is yours, Professor Noorsidi.
All right, thank you, Dr. Oyin, and as well as the MC Noor for the brief presentations about the program as well as about me. As requested by Dr. Oyin, yes, actually there are few more interests in research from my side is actually is regarding to the technologies point of view related to economics and as well as to the current scenarios of social science impact to the community. So this is I would like to thanks to ITS for the opportunity for me to share some of our knowledge, and perhaps this will be a good sharing sessions. I love to call it as a sharing sessions instead of class and so on, because sometimes when you share, the audience feel more close to us to maybe ask the questions and so on. And I would like to welcome to audience to at least if you have no question at all, at least you share a bit about your progress. Maybe we can help with a few points to improve or to bring to the another levels of your current studies.
Kan, kaki tiga kan?
Right. So yes, my name is Noorsidi. You may call me CD, because I have long name, and then I love to introduce myself as CD. That's easy to remember, alphabet C and D. And I do hope during the sessions, I'll try my best to share based on my own experience, as well as based on the theory of philosophy, or what you need at least when you need to do, or when you want to proceed your studies. I've been mentioned earlier that this program is international programs, and compulsory for MSc student from ITS as well as PhD student from ITS. And I also been mentioned by the committee member earlier that there are few students globally, some from Malaysia and some of them from Philippines. Then we do hope maybe there are few more come in after this. Then maybe they can share based on their own experience as well during the sessions. So I make these sessions as a generic session, so at least all of our participants or audience background can at least appreciate what is the content, and then as well as how they want to proceed their study after these sessions, perhaps, right? So maybe based on what I'm going to share today, is not compulsory for you to follow directly, but at least as a guide for you to have some background or some scenario to engage yourself with the your own topics at least. So maybe I would like to have a few minutes to do some technical part on sharing my slide. All right, is it okay, Dr. Oye?
Yes, sure.
All right. Okay, can you see my slide?
Yes.
All
yes.
right, that's good. Perfect. All right, so today, this is me. Today, I will share with you about common research methodology in your field. So, as mentioned to me as well, there's parallelization. The other sessions is about soft engineering, and today, me myself as a current senior lecturer in real estate, and under currently we have rebrand our faculty. So it's before this known as the two split faculty, Faculty of Built Environments and Faculty of Geoinformation and Real Estate. Now they merge the faculty and be branding under the names of Faculty of Built Environment and Surveying. So under the faculty, we have a few department consists of architect, urban landscape architect, quantity surveying, real estate, land administrations, and so forth. So this is based on today's topic that been given. So I think that might be good for us to have at least a basic background, right? To have at least a scenario. I will try my best to bring up based on the scenario, meaning that you can see and you can imagine what is the best, what is that suit for you to engage with your study further on. Okay. So understand the research, understand the scenario. why I would like to say about the understand the scenario. Because for me, when you want to do a research, right? When you do the research, what does it mean by research? So maybe some of you say, all right, I have a question from this one, then I want to do my research. I want to do a research from this topic. Yes, that is part of the research activities, right? So maybe some of you, like I've been asked by my colleague about this topic related to, let's say, about the design, related to, let's say, about the land methods. But then I can't answer the questions, right? So maybe I need to do a research about this. Yes, that's also called as a research. All right. So in these situations, right? In these situations, the research is actually, if I may say, right? The research is actually to about aim to derive some original finding, right? Aim to derive some original finding based on what you have understand, what you've been asked, and then what is currently happening in your current situations. So a search for knowledge and understanding, a plan, carefully systematic, thoughtful, or a systematic process of collecting and analyzing data for some purpose. This is all called as a research. So is it, if we just observe, called as a research? Observe is not a research, but then observe is part of doing the research, right? So in having, based on understanding, in having the good research, so as I know, as all of us know, for today's event is actually for the purpose of to share understanding for the academic research. So for postgraduate research, as example, right, the search should be undertaken to establish fact and principle that are generalized enough to be used by others. Or we can say that when we need to do a research on academic research, what they need to do is actually to appreciate this research or the knowledge have been searched before, and then to do some more amendment or improve that particular research to appreciate what have been or what been asked to us that we have no idea what about it, or that we want to explore more about the research. So this is actually related to the academic research. And at the end of the day, when we do the research, the academic research, what we need to understand is that we have to appreciate all the previous knowledge. Let's say the previous knowledge consists of theories, consists of what have been studied before, right? The differentiate between the previous study with your current studies. So appreciate all those things, and then we need to make sure that we have some reference, citation to appreciate what have been done by the earlier research. So when it comes to the contributes to the to the new findings, the original finding. So what does it mean by original? So this is another thing that we need to consider as well, right? So because when we do research, we aim to derive some original findings. So what is the original mean? Right? So original means is that the setting down. What is original? What is called is original? Original is setting down a major piece of a new information in writing for the first time. Maybe. So how about the questions of that? The design is have been mentioned earlier. The design have been done by the previous studies, right? The drawing have been come out by the previous personnel, right? The economic concerns on the community has been carried out by the previous researcher as well. So what is it? So how we want to proceed our research, right? So then the first about originality is to setting down a major piece of new information. So the second one, right, is about maybe continuing a previous original piece of work, right? Carry out original work designed by supervisor, example, which is maybe this is, I can say, most probably this is about top call for the research. right? Carry out original work designed by supervisor. Showing originality in testing somebody else ideas, right? Looking forward for new originality from the previous idea. Carry out empirical work that has not been done before, maybe, right? So what else? So in originality, to provide the originality, right, is also taking a particular techniques and applying in a new area, also called original. Bringing a new evidence to bear on an old issue, also called as an originality. Being cross-disciplinary and using different methodology, also part of it. Instead of that, we can say that looking at areas that people in the disciplines haven't looked at before, as well as adding to knowledge in what way that has not previously been done. So sometimes in our architecture topics or studies, our valuation studies, real estate studies, or surveying studies, or even design studies, most probably we have some uh, uh, reference from a previous study. So how we want to make sure the originality can be different between the previous study. So this is part or some of this the researcher call as gap. Right? What is the gap between your study and your previous studies? Or maybe we can, I love to say in layman language, if I would like to say that, instead of gap, you know, that sometimes some of us quite confusing with the words of gap. Maybe we can say that. So, what is the difference between your study with your previous studies? With the previous studies, not your previous study, but with the previous study. So, what is the difference? So, what else? Which part that you try to come out? You try to dig more to understand about your current studies. So these questions, this kind of situation is actually contributes to the originality of your studies. So this is important because at the end of the day, when you want to pitch for your research, for your proposal defense as a sample, what you need to understand is that what is the gap or what is the difference between your study, your current study with the previous study. So this is really crucial part. Even though the coming after that is actually what is your topic, so what is your objective and so forth. So how about your literature review? But then based on the research methodology today, I would like to share a bit on the concerns of research methodology, right? So maybe for the next topic we can share on the next sessions. All right, so what else that we need to understand? All right, understand scenario. So what we are going to do actually. So we actually want to utilize the research, right? What we are doing now is actually when it comes to the topic of research methodology, after we have some background about the definitions of research, about the originality. So what is the main thing that we want to do? So when it comes to the research, that what we are going to do, especially related to academic research, we are going to do is we want to utilize the research. We want to attempt to seek answer to the questions. So what kind of questions? So maybe during our situations as under our field, we can say that maybe because of the spark from one questions from our colleague or maybe from our supervisor to us that we have no idea what is the answer. So we attempt to seek the answer to that particular question. So instead of that, we also want to draw a conclusion from the data that we have, right? So can you see that we want to answer the questions, we want to come up with a solid or written data, right? And then we want to generalize conclusions. Because of why? Because sometimes when the questions is quite focused, we want to make sure that this study can be appreciated by the rest. So we want to generalize the questions. And maybe we want to add to the existing body of knowledge, improve our understanding of the world in which we live. Right? So this is why we need to understand the scenario. Right? We need to understand the scenario of why we do the research. So what is the importance of research methodology? some of information we can say clearly. Right? Research methodology is about research and what is the method in doing that. Deliver the answer to the research questions, example. All right. So when we have some background about the scenario, we already understand about the scenario. So now, when we are going to appreciate in academic studies, academic research, what we need to appreciate again. I love to use the word appreciate because in academic study or even in the real life, what we need to understand is about appreciating whatever next to you. All right, appreciate whatever knowledge that you receive, appreciate whatever questions that you receive. So that is why I love to use the words of appreciating. So when we have some background about understanding the scenario, we already have the research, we already have the original, we also understood that when we are doing the research, in academic research especially, it's quite different with the research on business matter example. It's quite different research with the direct research, or we call as that we already want to either A or B. This is quite different. So in academic research, the relationship between research and theory, this is also important, right? Because we are doing about academic studies, academic research. So what we need to understand about the relationship between research and theory. So there are wide range of theory available. Yes, if you glance through from the internet, yeah, even if you have time to go to your library, even nowadays we have online library and so on. Once you put the names of theory as example, structural functionalism, that's what we call it one, historiographic theories, right? There are so many things, so many explanations outside there. So we use theory as mean of explaining our research. So what we need to be is actually we need to be creative and crucial in getting some informations that really applicable to our research. We also carry out research that challenge existing theory or to develop new theory. So this is another thing that we need to understand. So at the end of the day, of your study, either you are going to challenge the existing theory or you are going to develop a new theories. This is what we call as outcome from your first aim of your studies. So I may say that theories are often challenged, right? Theory are often challenged. Yes, right? Because of why? Because sometimes we not even exist based on the theories that we need to understand. But if you are going to challenge the existing theory, you need to make sure that during your research methodology, you have to understand that you need to do the historiographic studies example. So meaning that you need to follow all the historical situations, plot, and so on. So this is the most important things if you are going to challenge the existing theory, or even you can put under the concept of hypothesis, right? So this is example that I put there about the theories that you can see, but not limit to this one. You can reflect back based on your own studies and so on. So I already mentioned when doing the research, when doing the studies, right? Some of them call as research, some of them call as studies, some of them call of your project and so on. What you have to bear in mind when you do the research, right? When you do the research, you have to understand the first and foremost, you must have at least the idea about what is the topic. Don't bother whether you are from architect, you are from surveying, you are from urban design, right? But the most important thing is define the topics. So after the define the topic, this is where you come about the narrow down the topic. Because of why? Because you need to we are not in academic studies, academic research, no need for us to answer all those questions, all the issues that exist, right? For the purpose of master level example, what you need to focus is actually you need to focus on operational or tactical level, right? that you need to understand based on the knowledge that you gain from the degree level. So this is expansions about that particular knowledge. But then on PhD, you need to understand about contributions of the knowledge, the body of knowledge, and then what else that we need to improve or we need to gain from the studies on the topic. And then the number three, in the process, you have to gather the background informations, right? And then when it comes to the next stage, and when it comes to real situations, based on the topic that have been defined, that you narrow down the topic and also gather all the background, what you need to do is actually to create a research questions. With example, with the current situations of pandemic, right? There's so many things outside that happen. We can see the design of the building. We can see, is it the green building is good with the current pandemic? Is it the pandemic will insist more situations about difficulties for the economics? This is another background study example. So when it comes to the so many things, so many plot here and there, so we need to create, for the next step is we need to create a research questions. For me, based on the research questions, this will bring you to the next level of either your outcome, either your objective, or either the methods that you need to apply to deliver these studies. So for the next step, after you create a research question, then come on the questions. So how many research questions that I need to create? How many research questions that I need to develop? All right. I would like to suggest that first, just go as much, all out as much as you can to come out the research questions. But then, if you still remember, you already define your topic, you already narrow down your topic, and you already have some background information related to your topic. And then, based on that three steps, you need to choose, pick which related or whichever or whatever research question that have you come out, even though you have hundreds, 20, 50 research questions, then you just pick which is the best that you think based on your find out or background information that you have studied. Maybe you can just come out either 1 or 2 or 3 research questions. Why I say 1, 2, 3? Some of them looking forward up to 5. Why you need to come out so much research questions? Because at the end of the day, these research questions will guide you to do your study. As I mentioned earlier, these research questions also will guide you to create your aim, right? To create your objective and so on, right? And then step number 6, develop a working thesis statement. Number 6, evaluate your sources. Number 7, during your studies, you must have some of citations. And then at the end of the day, what you need to do is write up. Right? You need to put every single information that you have received in your paper, right? Academic setup, format, and so on. So this is what you need to understand. All right. So next one. As we mentioned just now, there are so many types of research, right? So for the types of research, under architecture, design, social sciences, research need a design or structure before data collections or analysis can commence. So actually, not just based on our field, we can see throughout outside there, globalized, when whatsoever your background, your field of study, yes, every research needs to have a design or structure before they put the determinations what's next, right? So this is one of the ideas that I would like to all of you understand, that this is compulsory, this is important. You have to plan, you have to have your own idea, you have to have at least what is the potential outcome for your study based on your topic that's have been picked up for your study. So this is important. So and then it's provide a framework for the collections and analysis of data. They have their own goals. So every type of research have their own goals, right? So this is also important for you to understand. So I try my best to give a glance through of information related to these studies. So descriptive research example, What does it mean by descriptive research? Right? Under the research methodology, descriptive research is to discover the fact, to describe the reality, or to observe. That's what I mentioned earlier, that observations is not a research, but it's part of the research, right? The process that has been done through the research. Example, what are people's attitude toward welfare? What are the feelings or worker face with redundancy? This is called as descriptive research, that you want to explore, you want to observe, you want to discover what happened during the situations. Predictive research, making projections about what may occur in the future. Let's say, the example, in which city would be most profitable to open a new retail outlet. Or maybe we can say, based on the current situations, if we want to bring twin technology, twin digital technology towards the green building of one of the commercial building in Indonesia, example, is it good enough for the next coming design, right? So this is like a predictive. What else? What's going on next? All right. So explanatory research, right? Explanatory research is determining why something's occur, right? It's like you want to explore of the words of why. That's why we call it explanatory research. So example, why do certain, I think research question example here, why do certain people become criminals? Why do males live shorter span lifespan shorter than females? How can we reduce the numbers of complaints made by customers? So this is about you are looking of why and how. So what's going on there? What happens outside there? How these things happen? Well, this is what we need to understand. So under the next of type of research is called as evaluation research, to monitor and determine how effectively program or clinical practice achieve their goal. So this is another example. So example of the question is a program of A in a certain district working? So nowadays in the current pandemic, is that the A vaccines is working in certain country, example, all right? So this is how we need to understand. Purely or theoretical research, advanced knowledge with a little concerns of any immediate practical application. So this is about what we call as content studies, right? On desk studies, example, that you are digging about the understanding or knowledge from the theoretical part. So detections of gravity wave, example, what's happened? That's purely about the theoretical. Apply research designed with a practical outcome income, right? So it's like that you are looking forward, what's next. The scientific method of studies and research is used in business, medicine, education in order to find solutions that may improve health, solve scientific problems, or develop new technology. All right, so all of this, it depends on you. So which is the best? Right? The most important, you will see that I will keep repeating this one. The most important is that what you need to understand is all of your studies or your research and so forth, you will come out the aim and the objective. At the end of the day, what the most important is these two things we answer for your research questions have been selected. So the most important in either doing the research as a basic research, what is the research, or in the research methodology, still you need to appreciate the most is your research questions. All right. There are another few types of research called as survey research. Survey is about generalizations, also is about questionnaire, right? This is like distributions of questionnaire. Then we come out with the ideas of how to generalize all those kind of things. It's quite generic and so on. Another one called as ethnographic research, which are carry out in natural setting, observe and or interact with the studies participants in their real life environments. Use participants' observations and interviewing. So under explanations of type of research, some of them is come out with the ideas of qualitative and some of them is actually from quantitative. Right? Under the types of historical research studies that mean the past event, right? That in attempt to interpret the facts that explain the cause of event and the effect in the present event. So sometimes I may say that under our field, some of us love to do about historical research because they want to explore why this design appeared like this, right? Why this effect of this development, right? Effect like this, right? What is the main thing that contribute to these situations? So this is called as historical research. Historical research involves the careful study and analysis of data about the past event. Sometimes it's quite critical to get the data. Sometimes it's most of them related to experience or study or deep information from the maybe we call a specific focus group of people and so on. It is critical investigations of event, their developments, experience of past, right? Then the purpose is to gain clearer understanding of the impact of past on present and future event related to the life process. The next one is called as case study. Case study entails the details and intensive analysis of a single case, example, a single school, a single community, a family, an organization, or a person, or an event. A case study is a research approach that is used to generate an in-depth or multifaceted understanding of a complex issue in the real life context. So this is just an example that an investigation into the reasons of the global financial and economic crisis from year of 2008 up to 2010 is also a case study because you have a period of time that you want to understand what is going on within that thing, right? So this is called as research studies. Comparative studies, right? The studies using more or less identical methods of two contrasting cases, right, to seek explanations or to gain greater awareness and deeper understanding of social reality in the different contexts of background. Sometimes comparative studies needs to be dig more details because what we worry about, we concerns about is actually the details or the main problem statement for this particular study. Why you pick these issues example? What is the main or major problem statement? So when you want to apply of comparative study, you have to identify either this kind of study is actually valid for academic at your level, either you are doing your MSc or PhD, or this is not suitable for this kind of studies because of the niche of our area. Maybe this is most probably about like tasks, direct tasks given by the either the agencies and so on, that they are looking for straightforward of comparison between A with B example. All right. So the next one called as experimental research. So most of experimental research is used by the scientists and medical researchers. So describe what will be when certain variables are carefully controlled or manipulated. Example, experiments using new drug with laboratory rats. So there's also issues or related of clinical testing with the current pandemic example. So, but then this research design can be used in social sciences research. So that's another issue. So this is just only the information that there are a lot there's a lot of research types exist in the our current life and so on. So it's just a matter of either which is suitable for you, right? Which is suitable for you to make sure that this is good, right? To answer directly at the end of the day, to answer directly what your aim, your study aim, right? What is the objective of your studies? At the end of the day, the alignments of the objective to answer your research questions. This is crucial. So what's next? This is an example of research, type of research they call as positivism and interpretivism. So this is actually some explanations, right, about between two difference between positivism or interpretivism. Positivism is actually the everything is positive, that you are looking forward about what we need to cover more, right? What we need to explore more and so on. And most of positivism is actually under the research methodology is actually involve the data collections related to under the terms of quantitative. right? They are looking forward for A, B, C's numerical 1, 2, 3 ratios and so on, right? So it's very objective and detached. And also sometimes they are looking forward to about comparison, right? Correlations, causes, and so on. So under the interpretivism, so when we use the words of interpretivisms, so this is about so subjective. We want to look into what involved. We want to understand about what's the feeling, what we need to interpret, right? What we is like, what's happened if we are not doing this to this particular research. Let's say if under the terms of design, if you want to come up with a design, but you are looking into the, let's say you are looking into the qualitative, that you are looking into the either the interactions or the effect, involvement or the feeling after they look with your design. So this is called under the types of research called as interpretivisms, because you are looking forward what will be effect to this particular community or society. So let's say you have a design, right? When you have a design, then you want to have a feeling from that design. You want to study the internal feelings, internal scenario, internal situations, right, towards the design. So you have called as a focus group discussion example, one of the data collection method. So when you have that kind of studies, then you expose this kind of design to them, then you have to gain of information either through the interview and so on. What do you feel with this kind of design? What do you look forward with this kind of design? Right? Same goes to the rest. Either the architect or either the urban design, right? Or either the social sciences. When you want to look into the qualitative, some of the qualitative is very looking forward in depth of the feeling, right? So this is quite crucial. For me, yes, for me myself, I'm looking forward for quantitative because it's quite straightforward with all the data and so on. And then what I love to do is at the end of the day, if we appreciate the situations of the human, sometimes of human looking forward about the feelings, but some of the majority, the human looking forward with the fact and figures. Right? They're looking for the data. Right? They're looking for, instead of audio, they also want to see the visual about the data. So what's the number? What is the percentage? What is the details of the things? Right? So that is why for me, myself, I love to know about, I love to do much on the quantitative. So what will be the best type of your research? I have no idea. I have no answer. You can answer by yourself, right? But I do hope that when based on this topic, a brief identity sharing here, at least you can see what type of research you are doing now. Right? Design are often equated with qualitative and quantitative research method. The design based on type of data. Right? Quantitative study use statistical analysis, while qualitative studies strive to understand the meaning and the understanding of the phenomena. So that's why, as mentioned just now, it's about the deep insights of the feeling, right? The scenario that we have no idea what's going on there. Okay, so what's next? Now, what we need to explore more is about quantitative research as well as qualitative research. So what does it mean by quantitative research? Quantitative research, survey research is widely regarded as being inherent quantitative. All right. So the example here, a variable across a large number of instances sample. It's deductive in nature. That is, variable are selected for investigation from theory or conceptual model before the study. Hypothesis about the extensions, about the extent, nature, frequency, and the relationship among variables often guide the research. Descriptive statistic describe the patterns of behavior, right? Also called under quantitative, right? And inferential statistics are used to generalize the finding to the populations, also called under the quantitative. So finding here are presented called as quantitative. So the sample of quantitative is about quantity, experimental, statistic, predictions, confirmations, hypothesis testing, large random representative instruments, sometimes used, test, and questionnaire. So actually, when we are discussing about quantitative, we can say that if we are doing A things, then we are looking forward to dig about the numbers, to dig about the informations that we need to justify. So this is all about quantitative, right? And then some of the questions come, maybe after this we can discuss further on. The qualitative research is actually the paramount objective is to understand the meaning of an experience within the nature of the setting, right? Experience within the nature of the setting. The analysis strives for depth of understanding and how all the parts work together to form a whole thing, right? To understand what at the end of the day, what is the result, what is the internal result, outcome that we need to strengthen to justify our, maybe, the quantitative figure. It is inductive in nature. Generalizations, concept or hypothesis emerge for an examinations of data grounded in the context itself. The focus is to the discovery of new relationship, concept, and understanding rather than verifications and predetermined hypotheses. So this is some of example of qualitative research. It's about quality, right? Right or not? It's good or not? Right? Better or not? About the fieldwork, ethnographic, grounded, understanding, description, discovery, flexible, involving, and emergent in design, small, non-random sample, example, and interview and observations. So sometimes they ask the questions of, so what is the difference between quantitative and quantitative? So this is the situation. Then can we do a mixed method? Yes, you can do a mixed method as well, right? So you already understand about the quantitative and qualitative. So quantitative, as mentioned by Crosswell, right? As mentioned by Crosswell, I can see here, because I found this is a good sample that for you to understand very well, because that is why some of the humans, like me, example, I'm looking forward about the audio and visual, and then at the same time, I'm looking forward to do some written, right? Kinetics, to at least to know, understand further and so forth. So when it comes to the situations of doing research, academic research, some of us needs to do only quantitative because the questions is based on the instrument base that really straightforward. I'm looking forward of the performance example. But some of us only do the qualitative. But maybe nowadays, when we want to justify our study, what we are looking forward is combinations of qualitative and quantitative, and called as mixed method. So when it comes to the mixed method, the ideas of mixed method is that both combinations of both predetermined and emerging methods, right? Then it comes to the questions, it can be open and close-ended questions, right? So the data types, it can be multiple form of data drawing on all possibilities. Because of why I say some of us looking forward about mixed method, because of the nature of our studies nowadays, right? Maybe the previous study that they have a purely only the first time of doing that one. But currently, when it comes to the current situation, to appreciate with the current situation and so on, there are about few studies have been done. So where is the difference between A study, B study with it under the same topic? That is why we need to come out the ideas of mixed method. So this is another to explore more, to expand more. I love to say that sometimes what I love to do if I'm stuck in doing my research, what I love to do most is actually come up with the idea of 5W1H, right? Right? The concept of 5W1H of who, what, where, when, why, and 1H is how. And try to dig as much as you can to come up with a, maybe this is also can be used to create the research questions, right? To identify the best aim and the best objective at the end of the day to come out the best outcome or answer, right? So instead of having 5W1H, right? This is also some example about the research methodology, right? The data collection sample, right? That you can do under the exploratory research. Why I pick exploratory research, right? Because some of you maybe actually try to explore about the new topic. That's quite difficult to find out through the analysis of previous studies. So I pick up exploratory research to explain, right? Under exploratory research, with the primary data, they call under the collection data, data collection, they call as doing surveys, interview, focus group, observation. And under the secondary data, they call as online research, literature review, research, and case study research. This is only some of a brief example to some of you that maybe this is your first time to understand about academic research. All right. So the next one, I'll try my best to appreciate with only about 8 minutes left, about 10 minutes left. The rest of the slide about the data collection methods and the instrumentations, measurements, and sampling. Instrumentations, measure, device used to quantify and record information that are important to the research. Measurement is a procedure in which of assign numerals, numbers of other symbols to empirical properties, example, object, event, variables according to the rules. And sampling, the segments of populations that is selected for investigation, a subset of population. The most important is that when it comes to the ideas of data collections, the most important is that you have to understand who are the populations instead of focusing directly to the samplings. Right, under the instrument method, before we go further about the population and so on, under the instrument method, the standardized instruments called one that has been carefully developed, highly refined measuring procedure, has been designed for administrations under carefully prescribed conditions for some specific purpose. All right. So they also about procedure for scoring has been carefully prescribed, and as well as include estimates of validity and reliability that are based on sound experimental research. Researcher developed instrument, this does not have standardized, but they based on directly on the researcher, based on the topic that what they are going to do. Probably does not have established reliability and validity. So example of reliability test, what they are doing, the instrument called as pilot study required, interview schedule, observations, and so on. Factor to consider in selecting instruments. The first one, the research method. What kind of research method you have pick up? Descriptive, correlational, historical, action research. There are about types of research earlier that I mentioned, right? The research questions or hypotheses to determine the variables of the study and analysis procedure of the study. This is the thing that you need to consider when selecting an instrument. To decide on the instrument, review the studies, review the research questions or hypotheses, review the plan analysis procedure, select an instrument type, and then search for existing instruments or develop new one. That depends on you. Can you imagine that based on these few things, right? The most important is to understand again what you are doing. What you are doing, reread what your topic, what's your aim, and so on. So this is actually explanations about the instruments and the measurements. So measurements under data collections called measurements. They are called non-parametric scale. Right, non-parametric scale is actually under there are about two called as nominal scale or ordinal scales. Right, the number assigned for a purpose of identification and classification normally called as nominal, and ordinal is actually concerns with the qualities that can be used to classify further, like Likert scaling, rank order in terms of satisfaction levels, and so on. So this measurement type actually you can use even under our field. Sorry, our field you can use by applying of, let's say, SPSS, right? SPSS. Even there are a few more theoretical analysis, right? There are a few more types of software that you can apply. And then the parametric scales used for variable with distributions. So they also have we call as interval scales and as well as ratio measurement scale. So this is the measurements is actually to help you when you want to justify your study. This is how you see to the examiner example that you use this because this will come example if you are going to use interval scale, because this will provide the identifications and rank order characteristic at the end of the day. I have equal interval between the number on the scale. So this is why I pick interval scale under parametric scales example. Right? So now, when it comes to the sampling, because of why we need to at least touch a bit on sampling, because some of them you need to understand when it comes to the sampling, because we are not going to do the whole things, right? The whole populations, right? So when it comes to, let's say in Indonesia, there's so huge numbers of people in Indonesia. So don't you think so? It's possible for you to test to the whole things. So that's why we need to do as sampling, right? So why we need to do the sampling? Because sampling will represent the whole populations. That is why under the sampling method, there are few more definitions, right? But the most important here that I want to share is there are three major problems have to be dealt with effectively about sampling. Definitions of populations, sample design, and sample size. So let's say under the sampling, probability sampling, samples is representative of the full population, randomly probability, right? So the finding can be generalized. Under non-probability sampling, sample is not representative the full population, but is more accessible, cost-effective, and convenience. So this is also important. So which is which, right? Under probability sampling, let's say we pick up the definitions of simple random. So simple random is that when the sample is smaller, one standard method is to use simple random sampling, which give every individual in the target populations an equal chance of being selected by generating a series of random. So it depends on your studies. What is your aim? What is your research questions? What is your objective? If your study is looking forward for the simple, if you need the certain communities, which is selected community, then you use sample randoms, right? And then second one, a cluster. In stage one, the market research example, select a certain numbers of a group or cluster of people to questions or interview. And then the random sample within each cluster is selected for the actual study. So cluster is like you already cluster them, right? Clustering them into the certain information or your aim that you need to do. Stratify is where the overall population is divided into mutually exclusive group before the random sample is selected. So, and then the last one is actually systematic and easy versions of probability sampling because of researchers select every end of individual on the population list. So this is about probability. You have about 4 at least. Then you want to make sure that from the process they have about 1 or 2 level. Even you can combine this method and this approach under probability sampling. For non-probability samplings, there are about 4. I try to pick up about 4. The one's called is convenience, a quick and easy way to select your research subject because they are the ones most convenient for your particular research project. This factor means it's faster, easier, and cheaper to conduct your research. Sometimes we can say that because of a rule of thumb example, right? Because of there are so many difficulties, because of so many limitations, so we only pick up with based on the convenience. But the main thing, the major disadvantage is that you can introduce significant bias or sampling error using this method. Quota, right? Based on quota. Quota and least study participant until a relevant research category has recruited enough respondents to reach holistic conclusion. So you have already limit your numbers of samples, right? The next one, judgmental, a technique where researchers use their own rationale to select the sample based on personal knowledge and expertise. So this is actually not so advisable for our field because we worry that we concerned about the bias outcome at the end of the day, right? And the bias, let's say the design, the drawing, the shape, and so on, because we want they agree with us, then we just select the potential sample to support our outcome, our aim. So the next one is actually the snowball is extensively used where the population is unknown and rare and it is tough to choose subject to example them as sample for research. So this is called a snowball. It's like from a person pick 2% and then that 2% pick another 2% example like that. It's called as snowball. So based on that, under the data collections considerations, what we need to really understand is actually the situations of our main focus of our studies. So data analysis, there are few more to cover up. Under the data analysis, the process of systematically applying statistical or logical techniques to describe and illustrate, condense, and recap and evaluate data. So after we have the idea about research questions, research type, right? The research data collections method, what is the best for us to do the studies? So we need to understand about the data analysis. So what is the data analysis? Data analysis based on what you receive, what you have been, what you have collected from your survey example, from your focus group studies example, focus group discussions, or even from the other method that you love to use, based on the whole method that have been listed, or maybe not even have been listed there, then to come up with the fact and figure. So to analyze the data under the qualitative approach, we can see that content analysis is part of the data analysis under the terms of qualitative. So content analysis is grouping content into recurring themes or categories. And then the next one, discourse analysis, understanding how people interact with each other. This is called under qualitative. And narrative analysis, analyze how people talk about their experience. So there are about few have been discussed right previously, but then this is like to strengthen based on the potential method that can be used. This is the analysis that can be applied. Another one is called as typological analysis, a strategy to descriptive, qualitative, or quantitative that analyze whose goal is to the development of a set of related but distinct category within the phenomenon that discriminate across the phenomenon. And the last one called as quasi-analysis, a way to make non-precise count, like some, usually, or most, more precise. So this is under some sharing about qualitative analysis. So the next one is about quantitative analysis. Quantitative analysis, we can say, qualitative analysis we call as under the analysis, data analysis, we can say about quantitative statistics. So under the statistic, we differentiate into two. We call the first one as descriptive, describe, right? Describe your data in terms of composition and attributes, example. Describe the characteristic of variables, right? It describe to draw a conclusions about the numerical data, right? So maybe the example that we can see through either Excel or through either SPSS or either few more software outside there. The simple example here, like we want to see about the mean, the median, the mode, right? The totals, the summations, and so on. Under the inferential statistic, right? Under the quantitative, we want to compare groups in order to make inference and identify potential relationships. So it's like want to describe the relationship between variables, right? To make characteristic of samples from the populations. So example is ANOVA, right? The numbers of variance, regressions, correlations, what the correlated between A and B, example. What is the relationship between A and B? So how about the linear progress about A and B, example, about regression. So this is about the approach that you need to apply at the end of the day. So important points before we end up our sharing today, right? The most important points, right? I put about 5 here. Okay, there are 5 important points. The first one, provisional titles. Yes, you have to identify first. What is your title? What is your topic at least? Right, the topic that you love to do for your studies. And then you have to develop a research questions. Right? Why I say so? The research questions is important. Research questions or research questions important because this is actually the reason of why you need to explore, the reason of why you want to do this study. That's, if you still remember the 5W1H, then yes, you can have this kind of questions to come up the research questions, to create the research question. And that's one. The research questions is actually based on the topic that you identify, right? The title that you identify, the problem that you already gathered, and so on. And then you have from the research question, you determine maybe 3, 2, or only 1. I would like to suggest about 2 or 3 research questions from maybe 10 research questions that you created, right? You developed, but you come out for the sake of academic study, come up with the ideas of 2 or 3 research questions, and then develop another research aim. The next step is to develop research aim, right? After you have a big aim of these studies, you need to come out the idea of research objective. Research objective, again, you must make sure that research objective to answer your research question. Don't make that these two items different or split among each other. So you must make sure that objective always to answer the questions. Objective always to determine the questions, the research question. And to make sure the whole process of your study, to make sure the whole academic writing that you have to submit at the end of the day, at the end of your studies, is about the research methodology, the method that you need to use. Because if you don't understand your research questions, I'm sure you will come up with the wrong interpretations of research objective. And at the end, they will distract you with the wrong interpretations of what is the best research method that need to apply for your study. So the most important that you have to understand is that about your research questions, about your research objective, and the end, after you have understand and identify clearly about your objective and research question, then it comes to your research method, right? And when it comes to your research method, you will need to identify the whole thing that you to wrap up your studies. So I think, I'm sorry, because of quite beyond given time. And then I think that's all from me. Maybe we can have a few questions for this session. I back to you, Dr. Oyin.
Okay, thank you, Professor, for very thorough explanations on common research methodology in your field.
Yeah.
So I would like to give the floor to the participants whether they have any questions regarding Prof. CD presentations.
Okay, no worries then.
Yes, you could raise your hand or fill in the Google Forms that we have sent in the chat box earlier. Okay, if I would like to check the questions here. So there's some questions that I have found here, Professor. So there's a question from Putra Firdaus. If there's a research that we want to do, yet there's no method for such experiments yet, and we must invent, so maybe he meant that we must invent a new method, and how we express it in our research report, especially since most research is based from the already existing method.
All right, thank you, Dr. Oyin, and thank you, Putra, for the question. For the first one, is actually about, if I'm not mistaken, the question is about the new method, right?
Yes, if there's trying to do a research, but there's no methods available for such experiments yet.
Okay, so thank you for that question. So for that, the first questions, when it comes to the issues of no reliable method to be run through for your study, the first that you have to identify is actually what is that you are looking at the end of the day. So when you want to identify that one, you have to at least, if there are no method at all, I don't think so, they are not method. At least you have to identify through the hypothesis approach. All right, you have to clear cut their hypothesis. Hypothesis is actually like exploratory research. You want to explore more. So you have to come up with the idea of, okay, if, all right, let's say the sample of hypothesis. If I'm doing like this, is it become like A? All right, and then or the second hypothesis. If I'm doing like this, it become like this. So this is two hypotheses will give you some idea to explore more. So when it comes to the explorations, so you can look into the exploratory research. So from there, you can bring this part when it comes to the data collection example, to come out the analysis example. So you can do both ways of qualitative and quantitative, because you already explore about the potential from your research. Right? So when you have that potential, then you have to put in write up, that's for sure, because it's called as your studies, right? Research study and so on. When it comes to exploratory, then you have to identify. So what is the best analysis for this hypothesis? So for that particular hypothesis, maybe you can use qualitative approach. Maybe you can use quantitative approach. And from there, when it comes to your report, right, the outcome that you receive, let's say you use interviews, right, interview and focus group discussion and interview. So from that report, based on your hypothesis, so this will be reported in your study with the outcome of data or analysis, the result of your study. So this is how you report the new, or we call as, for you identify like there's no new methods, right? No new approach. So this is one of the best approach that I can advise, because you want to explore actually, because there are no idea about what you are doing, but there are questions about your topic, but you want to explore more. So normally, this kind of research is about exploratory research, right? So you want to explore. Then how you want to come up with the data or outcome, the result outcome is actually looking forward from, I may suggest, by applying mixed method, because this you are actually developing a new approach. You are actually developing a new things to contribute of the body of knowledge. Right, but that is why I would suggest you combine with mixed method, so at least you justify them, support each other with qualitative and quantitative. I think I covered two questions, right?
Okay, wonderful. So what you suggest is about to do the mixed methods, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Professor. And there's a questions from Muhammad Haris, UITM. If we are dealing with existing method throughout our research, what is your advice for this kind of situations to avoid duplicating or plagiarism?
All right. Thank you, Haris, for the question, and thank you, Dr. Ayun, for reading me the questions. Okay, there's two issues there, right? The first one about existing methods, right? The second one is about plagiarism. Okay. As general, I would like to suggest to all our colleagues lah. I call you audience as my colleague, right? We are in the research world. So I would like to say plagiarism is the crucial nowadays happen, right? That's everywhere in the world. So the most important things about the plagiarism is you must understand what you are doing, and you need to explain by your own, in your own layman language, your own way of writing about what you are doing, to make sure that the potential reader, the potential researcher, the coming researcher, when they refer to your study, they can see that you are doing something else, the difference between your study and with your previous study. And I'm pretty sure when you explain in your own layman language, with your own language, the numbers of the percentage of plagiarism will be reduced. Right? The issue of plagiarism is that when some of the researcher just copyright, even though they cite at the end of the day, they're not change anything. Right? Let's say that the situation explaining about A things, right? This laptop is actually good because of blah 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 by Haris, example, in 2019. And then there are one person called CD, just copy Haris mentioned about this laptop at the end of the year 2021 for his studies. So this is also still plagiarism, because you still copycat or copy paste with the same statement but from your own views. So to avoid the major issue of plagiarism, I may suggest, please explain based on what you understand of your own study and your own writing. This is important. This covered to the whole audience lah, to the whole colleague as well. So for the second, the first question is actually about existing method that has been done. So how we want to identify that we are different from the other researcher. So that is why I keep repeating about understand about your research questions, right? Research questions is crucial when you want to do your research, because research question will determine your research objective, and research objective will determine your method to do your studies. Right? Your method is actually to identify your research objective. Research objective is actually to answer your research question. So when it comes of the issue of existing method, actually, when it comes to the issue of existing method have been done before, when you feel that I want to make sure that a big differentiate between the previous one, then you have to identify back your research questions. What is the difference between your study and your previous study? Right? So when it comes to the, you identify clearly your difference, differentiate between your research question, your current research question with your previous study, automatically it will guide you to come out the best existing method to your particular study. And I would like to identify here that I would like to suggest is that when it comes to the issue of the differentiate between your study with your previous study, you have to identify at the early stage of your study, right? Meaning that at early stage, when you come up with your topic, you have to identify what is the difference. Sometimes the differentiate need, they determine by using the words of gaps, right? They use the words of what's your new contributions of knowledge. So this is also the same things with the what is the difference in the layman language? What is the difference between your study with your previous study? So if you identify early stage, I think you will not face this kind of situations, right? Because you already determined. If I want to do A at the early stage, and the previous study actually they have doing almost about A, but not A, because you already determined that. The difference between your previous the previous study with you is actually this thing. So you already determined that. I'm sure there are no issues of duplications and so on. All right, thank you for that one.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Yeah.
Sidi. Okay, once again, I would like to give the opportunity to the participants whether they have any questions or maybe just share about their experience, or maybe they have some concerns or anything regarding their current research.
Yeah, that should be good.
Okay. Because I once received questions from another event, Prof. Sidi. So they were asking me how to find research gap.
Okay, how to find research gap. This is not about research gap class. Okay, sorry. It's okay. I try my best to share based on my own experience. Okay, research gap. Actually, to be frank to all my colleagues outside there, sometimes when it comes to research gap, the word gap itself being defined confused among examiner or among researcher outside there. Sometimes for them, gap is like they understand about the differentiate only. But for me, that is why the first you have to understand that when you want to do your research, the most important thing is the questions, the research questions. If you can come up, let's say there one topic about green building design, example. If you can come out about 100 questions, right? 100 questions on that particular topic. That means that the potentials of the gap exists is also 100. Because why I say that way? Because the questions occur based on that topic. But then when you explore more, maybe from that 100 questions that you already developed, you will find maybe based on the keywords from that particular question. Let's say a keywords there, when you find that one, then you found a few articles about that. So meaning that you need to avoid that questions. So that is the process of reducing the research questions and reducing the similar gap, or actually the gap has been answered by the previous study. So for me, the best thing, the best and easiest way to identify a gap is, one, if there are no study at all about that topic, no study at all, meaning that when you come out the idea of, let's say, green building system, example, all right, the green building system. When you do the research, when you do the searching, example, from, let's say, searching from Scopus, Elsevier, and so on, or even on internet, you know, I'm not going to say which browser because they're not sponsor our program today. So when you do that one, if there are no outcome, right? No outcome from that particular keyword, the potential gap is there. That's the first one, right? The second one is that when it comes to the approach or method that you are doing, right? When you see that you are going to do a research about green building system, and then you want to do like using explanatory example, explanatory research. When you do search on that part, also did not appear, then that will be another potential gap by appreciating the method or approach. So then now you already have two gaps, right? Another one, this is like, I think majority examiner not agree with me, but even though this is live, but I may say that, to be frank, when you want to do a research, the most important is that if there are no study at all about your topic, or even you can't find even a, you can say that there are no discussions about this potential outcome. This is also a gap, because there are no outcome at all, you know. Because let's say because sometimes the examiners not agree when I say that, because there are no study at the next stage of the next areas of our district example, but there are major issue in that particular district. For me, I will accept that one as a gap, because the researcher can justify why this is important issue in that particular district, but they are not discussed at all through the academic studies, academic writing, and so on, mentioned about that district. So under our field, for me, under our field, I still can accept this one as one of the contribution for the gaps. So don't worry, actually. Yeah, sometimes I understand the researcher, the new researcher, especially, they quite, actually, you are like, yes, you are new in the world, but sometimes because you respect your supervisor, right? Because sometimes you're thinking that your supervisor is correct everything, you know. No, sometimes we as a supervisor looking forward a new knowledge from your studies. So maybe we can change certain culture that our student is actually contribute to our improvement knowledge, enhance our knowledge as well. So maybe it's a good for us lah. So no need to worry about that. To find a gap, as long as there are no answer, there is a gap. Maybe in the layman language lah. If no answer, there's a gap. So you want to find out the answer. That's maybe the easiest way lah. Right?
Okay, wonderful, Prof. Siti. Thank you so much. It's very encouraging statement. Okay,
there's one question.
Okay, Pak Ahmad Agung. Yes, please deliver your questions.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Prof.
Right.
Noorsidi.
Yes.
I saw it did mention on one of your slides. It's about, again, it is about the originality. Yeah, one of the point that you put there is that in the case that a researcher use the same methodology, use the same tools for a different objects of research. This is similar to my situation, to be honest with you. I'm using the same tools, the same method as what the previous researcher did, but I'm referring to the different object of research. I mean the different object of observation object. My question is, you think is it possible for me to offer a novelty or an offer of originality on this basis?
All right. Okay. Thank you, my brother Ahmad, I think. Right?
Yes, correct.
All right. Thank you. So I try my best to give based on my experience. Okay. Okay. You have, let's say, you have a project. You have
Yeah.
a project. Let's say a project, and then the previous study also almost similar tools and so on, but the different subject, right?
Yes.
So you want to apply to another new subject. Okay. For me, if you are doing PhD, there will be an issue. Because of why? Because maybe they lack informations of identifying the novelty in the different subject that you pick. You know, let's say what I mentioned just now about the sample of the different district, right? So the different district, but almost similar in approach, method, tools, and so on. But because of doing the study, the researcher can justify why they pick that particular district. And that justifications actually to cover the whole thing, an extensive study, actually additional to the tools or approach, meaning that they're not solidly use the same thing. They have some amendment or extension from that particular approach. Because of why? Let's say in your case, all right? Let's say in your case, the difference is only about the subject matter, right? The tools and the approach is actually similar with the previous study. I may suggest that you can enhance a bit with your previous, compared to the previous study in your tools example, your literature review example, to create the novelty. Why? Okay, we assume like this, right? The new the potential populations may be different, right? The new scenario, even though the subject is different, but the new scenario may be different with the previous studies. So put this one under justifications of why you want to pick with your current subject. Maybe it can support to the novelties. So what my concern is that if you are totally not amend or not do some extensions of the previous tool and approach, I'm quite concerned it will call as duplications or plagiarism. Because when it comes to write up, you may put the same or similar content with the previous study. So if you can extend a bit your study or approach, let's say currently you do the exploratory, you have exploratory and then you want to do a quantitative. With the previous study also do exploratory and do a quantitative. Maybe for your study with the current situation, you want to explore a novelty of your topic, you need to do some extensions on, instead of quantitative, you support with qualitative, do the hybrid or mix. And then at the same time, for that particular your literature review, if previously said that 100% mentions about this has not been done before, example from the previous one, but based on your study, even though the studies have been done in that particular subject, but the novel idea to that new subject of your subject not been discussed thoroughly on that particular subtopic. So this will create the new novelty for your subject. All right.
Thank you, Prof.
All right.
Very,
No worries then. All the
Thank
best.
you, Prof.
very helpful.
Sidi.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Pa Ahmad, for your questions. So I think we already come to the end of this Q&A session. So thank you so much, Prof. Sidi, for your wonderful presentations and very enlightening material. And I would like to return the floor to Noor as the MC.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Oyen.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Noorsidi, for the excellent lecture today. And thank you for Dr. Oyen for conducting this amazing session. Okay, everyone, please give applause to our speaker and moderator by using the Zoom reaction feature for today's amazing session. And then we would like to present a certificate awarding for our honorable speaker and moderator. So this is the certificate presented for Associate Professor Noorsidi Aizuddin Noor as the lecturer today. Okay, and then this is a certificate presented for. Okay.
All right. Just come. We are at the end of the session already.
Okay, thank you, Professor Noorsidi. And then the next one is the certificate presented for Dr. Octaviani Dwi Wahyudini as the moderator today. Okay,
Thank you, Noor.
okay. You're welcome, Dr. Oyen. Okay, once again, thank you very much to our speaker and moderator for your availability on today's session. Okay, before we end today's session, we invite you all participants as well as the honorable speaker and moderator to take a group photo. So for the participants, you may open your camera. Now I will wait for a little while. Okay. Okay, I guess that's enough. I will take a picture. Three, 1. Okay. Thank you, everyone. So the photo session has been ended, and then for the participants, please fill the feedback form through the link bit.ly/feedback at SEP 2021 that you can also see in the Zoom chat room. And we want to remind you, the participant who will get the stamp for it is the participant who come on time during this event until the end and also fill the feedback form. And finally, we have reached the end of today's Researcher and Research Student Enrichment Program, and we sincerely apologize for any mistakes we may have made during presenting as Master of Ceremony and Committee. Thank you very much to our speaker, moderator, and all participants for the attention and cooperation. Okay, before we part, I would like to inform you that we still have several future agendas in R2SCP Architecture Design, Urban Planning, and Social Sciences stream. You can see it on the poster we are showing you right now, or you can check it out on ITS Global Engagement website later. We will see you on the next session on the 27th of May 2021 with the theme Research Management Skills that will be delivered by Dr. Arina Hayati from ITS, as always, on 3:30 p.m. GMT+7. Once again, thank you everyone for today. Good evening and wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you so much, Prof. Sidi.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the
all of you.
committee.
All the best in your journey. To all of
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, I will give it back to the host to end the meeting.
All right. Thank you, Noor.
Pak Seno.